My girlfriend's parents switched to an open relationship, so she asked me to do the same, so I slept with her mom, who was fine with it. I slept with your mom. The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could second-guess them. Sarah's face froze. She stood in front of me, her phone still in hand from the argument that had been spiraling for the past 10 minutes. What did you just say? I crossed my arms, leaning back against the couch like I was waiting for her to process it. You heard me. You wanted an open relationship, right? Well, your mom was fine with it. Her phone slipped out of her hand and hit the floor with a thud, but she didn't notice. This wasn't where I thought my life would be 3 months ago, but here we were. It started on a Saturday night while Sarah and I were eating pizza on the couch. Out of nowhere, she said, "So, my parents are in an open relationship now." I blinked. What do you mean, open? She wiped her hands on a napkin and leaned back. They've been struggling for a while, apparently. They hit this rough patch. Mom thought Dad wasn't making an effort, and Dad said he felt like they'd become roommates. I frowned. I didn't know they had issues. Neither did I until they told me, she said, biting into her crust like she just told me something as normal as grocery shopping. They were fighting a lot. Mom wanted to feel desired again, and Dad said he missed the excitement they used to have. They even considered divorce, but instead, they talked to a therapist who suggested they try opening things up. She used air quotes like it was no big deal. And they actually went through with it? I asked. Yep. The idea was that they could explore other relationships while staying committed to each other emotionally. No secrets, no lying, just honesty. I sat there, trying to wrap my head around it. And they're both okay with that? Sarah grinned. Apparently. Mom's dating some guy named Victor. They met at her salsa class. Dad's been hitting the gym, and he said he's been on a couple of dates with women he met online. But they check in with each other constantly. Mom said it's made them more connected. So they're dating other people, but still together? Exactly, she said. Mom said they have ground rules. No one-night stands, no sleeping with mutual friends, and they have to talk about everything. It's actually made them more honest with each other than they'd been in years. She smiled. She told me she feels like she's in her 20s again. I didn't know how to respond. I'd never heard of anything like that outside of reality TV or online forums. But Sarah was acting like her parents had just discovered the secret to life. Dad even thanked Mom for suggesting it. She continued. He said he hadn't realized how much they'd both been holding back. Now they plan weekly check-ins where they talk about their dates and make sure either of them feels neglected. That doesn't seem awkward to them? Nope, Sarah said, scrolling through her phone. They say it's brought them closer. Like Mom told me that when she gets home from a date, Dad's genuinely interested in hearing about it. And vice versa. I shook my head, still processing it. So, no jealousy? They say it's easier because they trust each other completely. If one of them ever feels uncomfortable, they agreed to talk it out and make adjustments. She leaned forward, grinning. Isn't that kind of amazing? Sure, I said, though it didn't sit right with me. I wasn't judging. It just wasn't something I could see myself doing. But Sarah didn't seem to have any doubts about it. I brushed it off as her being happy for her parents. I figured the conversation was over. But looking back, that was the moment things shifted between us. Even if I didn't realize it, then a few weeks after that conversation, Sarah brought it up again. But this time, it wasn't about her parents. We were at her place, finishing dinner. I was rinsing off dishes when she leaned against the counter with that same casual smile she always had when she was about to say something weird. You know, she said, maybe monogamy isn't for everyone. I froze, plate still in my hands. What? She laughed. Relax, I'm not saying anything serious. I'm just saying, maybe relationships don't have to be so rigid. My parents are proof that it can work. I set the plate down and wiped my hands on a towel. Are you saying you want to do what they're doing? Not exactly, she said quickly. I'm just thinking out loud. I love you, and what we have is amazing. But don't you ever wonder if we're missing out on something? No, I said flatly. She shrugged. Okay, fair. But think about it. Wouldn't it be freeing to take some pressure off and just be open to possibilities? No guilt, no sneaking around. Just freedom. I stared at her, trying to process this. So you want to see other people? She hesitated for a second, then smiled like it wasn't a big deal. I think it could be good for us. I'm not saying tomorrow or anything. Just, eventually. I felt like the floor had shifted under me. Everything about our relationship had felt solid until now. Why are you bringing this up? Because it's been on my mind, she admitted. I don't want us to ever feel stuck. I want us to grow, and maybe this is part of that. I didn't answer right away. On the outside, I was calm, but inside, a million thoughts were racing. I'd always imagined a future where it was just the two of us. The idea of sharing her wasn't something I could handle, but instead of arguing, I nodded. Let me think about it. She smiled, gave me a quick kiss, and walked off like she just asked me if I wanted to try a new restaurant. But I knew one thing. This wasn't a suggestion she was going to drop any time soon. A week passed, and I couldn't get her words out of my head. The way she said it, so casually, as if opening our relationship wouldn't change anything, made me feel uneasy. One night, she brought it up again while we were lying in bed. Have you thought about what I said? I sighed, staring at the ceiling. Yeah, I've thought about it. And? I hesitated. I knew if I said no outright, it would create distance between us. But something about the way she framed it, like this was inevitable, made me realize I wasn't going to win this conversation by being defensive. So I nodded. Okay. Let's try it. Her face lit up. Really? But, I added quickly, we need ground rules. And we need to take this slow. Of course, she said, practically bouncing with excitement. We can figure it out together. I forced a smile, but inside, I felt like something was cracking. This wasn't what I wanted, but if I refused, she'd probably resent me for it. At least this way, I had some control, maybe even enough to steer things back to normal later. For the next few days, we set rules. No one we knew personally. Always be honest. And if either of us wanted to stop, we would. But I could tell Sarah was already ahead of me. She was eager, glowing like she was on the edge of something exciting. Meanwhile, I wasn't interested in seeing anyone else. Not at first. But then, as her enthusiasm grew, I realized something. If this was what she wanted, I'd use it to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. That's when I got the idea. Her mom had always been friendly toward me. Polite, warm, and supportive whenever we visited. And as crazy as it sounded, the thought started brewing in my head. What if I gave Sarah exactly what she asked for, but in the most unexpected way possible? The plan wasn't fully formed yet, but I knew one thing. If Sarah was so eager to play this game, I was going to make sure I didn't lose it. Started small. I didn't rush into anything. I wasn't even sure if this plan would work. But the next time we visited Sarah's parents for dinner, I paid extra attention to her mom, Lisa. Lisa was in her early 50s but looked younger, thanks to the yoga classes she wouldn't stop talking about. She had this energy about her, like someone who had rediscovered life. The same glow Sarah had been bragging about. We were in the kitchen, just the two of us, prepping salad while Sarah and her dad watched TV. Lisa handed me a knife to slice the cucumbers, and her fingers brushed mine. I noticed her gaze linger for just a second longer than usual. So Sarah tells me you've been thinking about opening up your relationship, she said, her tone casual but curious. I almost dropped the knife. She told you that? She tells me everything, Lisa said with a small smile. She's excited about it. But how do you feel? I'm adjusting, I admitted. She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. It's not for everyone. But if both people are committed, it can be freeing. I hesitated, then took a chance. And it's been freeing for you? Lisa leaned against the counter, folding her arms. It has. But it's also been unexpected in some ways. I could feel the tension building, the air between us heavier than it should have been. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I wondered if she knew exactly what I was thinking. Dinner's ready! Sarah called from the other room, snapping us both out of the moment. Lisa smiled, brushing past me as she grabbed the salad bowl. But as she did, her hand lightly grazed my arm. That small touch lit a spark. I didn't know if it was intentional, but I wasn't going to ignore it. The next day, I sent her a message on Facebook. Just something innocent. Hey, it was great seeing you last night. Hope dinner cleanup wasn't too bad. She responded within minutes. It's always nice having you over. You're good company. From there, we started chatting more often. At first, it was simple. Random check-ins, jokes about cooking disasters. But soon, the conversations shifted. She'd ask me about my life, my feelings about the open relationship, and what I thought about her experiences. And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Late one night, after Sarah had gone to bed, Lisa sent me a message. "If you ever want to talk in person, let me know. I understand what you're going through." That was my green light. I replied, "I'd like that. Maybe we can meet up sometime, just the two of us." Her response was instant. "How about this weekend?" It was happening. The plan was no longer just an idea. It was in motion that weekend. I told Sarah I was meeting an old friend for drinks. She didn't ask too many questions. After all, she was the one who wanted this. Freedom. She kissed me goodbye and told me to have fun, not knowing I was about to meet her mom. Lisa and I agreed to meet at a small bar about 30 minutes outside of town. It wasn't the kind of place anyone we knew would frequent, and that's exactly why we chose it. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting at a corner booth with a glass of wine in front of her. "You made it," she said, smiling as I slid into the seat across from her. "Of course," I replied, trying to stay calm. But inside, my heart was pounding. We started with small talk, how work was going, how Sarah's dad had taken up cycling. But it didn't take long for the conversation to turn deeper. "I know this can be hard," Lisa said, swirling her wine. "When your partner wants something you're not sure you can give." I leaned forward. "What if you're just doing it to make them happy?" She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I've been there. But sometimes you find that what you're doing for them can lead to something unexpected." The weight of her words hung in the air. We both knew what we were really talking about, but neither of us wanted to say it first. Until she did. "I'm not blind," she said softly. "I've noticed the way you've been looking at me." I opened my mouth to deny it, but she reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. "It's okay," she whispered. In that moment, everything I had planned in my head suddenly felt real. The guilt, the thrill, the sheer madness of it all, it hit me like a wave. But I didn't pull my hand away. We didn't stay at the bar long. After one more drink, we both knew where the night was headed. We left together, heading to a nearby hotel. Neither of us spoke during the drive, but the tension between us was electric. Once we were alone in the room, there was no hesitation. Whatever doubts or second thoughts I had melted away the moment her lips touched mine. It wasn't just about attraction, it was about proving a point. Sarah wanted an open relationship, and I was giving her exactly that. Afterward, we lay in bed, the room quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. Lisa turned to me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked. I shook my head. "No. Because in that moment, I didn't plan to tell Sarah right away. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to tell her at all. But the next morning, as I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee, everything hit me at once. The weight of what I had done, the fact that Lisa and I had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. And then Sarah walked in, cheerful and oblivious, pouring herself a cup of coffee like nothing had changed. I couldn't keep it inside any longer. "Sarah, we need to talk." She turned, her smile fading as she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" I swallowed hard and just said it. "I slept with someone." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what? You, already?" I nodded. "Yeah." She set her mug down, confusion turning into anger. "Who?" I hesitated for a second. There was no easy way to say it. "Your mom." The color drained from her face. For a second, I thought she might laugh, like she couldn't believe I was serious. But then her expression shifted into something darker. "You're joking, right?" "I'm not." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Sarah's hands trembled as she leaned against the counter. "You slept with my mom? What the hell is wrong with you? You're the one who wanted an open relationship," I said, my voice colder than I intended. She shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. "Not with my family. God, I trusted you. I was just following the rules," I shot back. "No secrets, right? No lying? I did exactly what you wanted." "That's not what I wanted," she screamed. We went back and forth, her voice rising with every word. I tried to explain, to make her see that this was her idea, but she wasn't having it. "You're disgusting," she spat. "Get out." I stood there for a moment, waiting to see if she'd calm down. But she didn't. Her breathing was heavy, her hands clenched into fists. She wasn't going to forgive me for this, and deep down, I knew I didn't want her to. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I called Lisa. I told her, I said. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. How did she take it? Not well, I admitted. Lisa sighed. I figured. We met up that night, and things between us didn't feel strange or awkward. If anything, there was relief, like we'd both been bracing for impact, and now that the damage was done, we could breathe again. By the time the weekend ended, Sarah had blocked my number. Our relationship was over, and I knew there was no going back. But Lisa and I? We weren't done. Sarah moved out within a week. I came home to find her things gone, her side of the closet empty, and a note on the counter, "Don't contact me again." I expected it, but it still stung. We had spent years together, and now, it all ended in silence. No closure, no final conversation. Just a clean break. Meanwhile, Lisa and I kept seeing each other. What started as a way to prove a point had turned into something I couldn't easily let go of. We weren't sneaking around anymore. Lisa would invite me over when her husband was out or meet me at my apartment. It was messy, but neither of us seemed to care. But things weren't as simple as they had been before. Sarah's absence lingered. We had the same friends, the same circles, and word traveled fast. Mutual friends started dropping me. People who had always been friendly now avoided me. I'd hear whispers whenever I went out, things like, "He's the guy who slept with his girlfriend's mom." Lisa, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. "They'll forget eventually," she said, stroking my hair one night while we lay in bed. "Just give it time." But time wasn't fixing anything. One day, I ran into Sarah at a grocery store. She was with a friend, laughing at something on her phone, and for a second, I thought she hadn't seen me. But then her eyes met mine, and her smile disappeared. I opened my mouth to say something, but she shook her head and walked past me without a word. That moment stuck with me for days. I had hurt her in a way I couldn't take back, and seeing her like that made it real. She had loved me, trusted me, and now she couldn't even look at me. Lisa noticed the change in me. One night, after dinner, she asked, "Are you okay?" I shrugged. "Yeah, I'm fine." But I wasn't. The thrill had worn off, and all I felt now was guilt. I wasn't even sure if I liked who I had become. A few weeks later, Lisa texted me, "We need to talk." When I met her, she looked serious, her usual carefree demeanor replaced with something heavier. "Sarah's not talking to me anymore," she said quietly. "She found out we're still seeing each other." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? "I think we need to end this," Lisa continued. "It's not fair to her." For the first time, I agreed. "Yeah. You're right." We said goodbye that night. No drama, no last-minute confessions. Just a quiet understanding that this was over. As I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened. The choices I made, the people I hurt, and the lesson I didn't see coming. Revenge doesn't feel like victory. It just leaves you standing alone in the wreckage. Sarah had moved on, and now it was my turn. But one thing was clear, I'd be carrying this with me for a long time.